architect Gen AI style applications around large language models and how the tracing and observability work and what MCP tools could work and all that jazz. That's a fun conversation by itself, but it's really low level. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. Here we're going to talk about the love triangle. Have you guys heard the phrase love triangle before? It'll make more sense when we get into it, hopefully. But it is one of those literary devices, as a way to think of it, right? It's one of those things you see in a lot of literature. It's a very common thing to show up in movies and books and TV and things of that nature because it's just a fun way to actually create drama. And guess what? It creates drama even in our enterprise IT departments. It's the relationship between dev, sec, and ops. That's my love triangle. All right, so let's actually get into it and have a look. So this is really kind of a platform engineering topic. One thing I like to talk about right away is where I sit in the value chain, and I like us all to think about where they sit in the value chain. In this case, you can see I put myself on the far left here, and on this side, but I'll move over here so you can see it. But you can see there, I basically work for a vendor. I don't work for the end user customer, and I don't work at the bank level that has to serve a specific person trying to get their money out of that bank or put the money in the bank. But that, if you think about it across the value chain, it's important to understand where you stand. Okay, I work for a vendor. I work with open source technologies. You guys might also pick up ideas from things like Gartner and Forrester and other big consulting firms and things like that. So all that is input to the platform people. All right, that's typically the Red Hat customer base. They're thinking about the infrastructure. They're thinking about the platform on top of that, and hopefully thinking about the developer experience on top of that. So that's what you call the platform team that is thinking about who they serve, and they serve the app developer, hopefully, right? The app developer then can build applications to build cool cars, runs down that road kind of idea. And then the developer, though, serves a business user because a developer's just not writing code for fun. Well, maybe they are, but hopefully they're building something that solves a business problem or supports a new capability for their end user. So that's a key aspect. And then maybe ultimately there's a consumer user, again, like that little old lady that has to go to the bank and wants to know that her, money is still in the bank. That's important to her because she doesn't want to run out of money. So you have to be thinking about all that value chain if you can. I think it's important because I find so many people in IT don't think about where they stand in the value chain. They think only about, I work on infrastructure and my infrastructure is super cool. I don't care if you don't like it or don't use it. Well, then what purpose did you serve, right? What value did you add to the game, right? So understanding that we're here to serve the ultimate end user. We're not just writing code, building infrastructure, running GPUs, building large language models, running Python and Java and C# for fun. Might be fun, but really won't serve the business or the organization, the government entity that we actually are within. All right, take this survey for me. You can pull it up on your phone. Let's see here. I'll do my test. We're going to run a little quick survey here. This is just something called Menti. Let's see if it loads up. Of course, I'm not on the internet here. It would help if I am. Let's see here on my phone. But hopefully you guys can pull it up while I'm trying to click into the Wi-Fi here. And it's welcome at AE, right? I guess password. Let's see if I got it right. Did that come up for you?
Yeah.
All right. I think the first question is, how many developers work in your organization or something like that, right?
Lead time for change.
Yeah, that's the title of it. But let's see here. It should be this one.
Something about the.
Right. So is that the question you get?
Just changed. No.
I just changed. Oh, yeah, now it changed.
Okay. Okay.
I know it's okay.
All right. So this helps me understand how big your organization is a little bit, because I think that does change contextually how we talk about some things. So how many developers are in your organization? It might be zero. Zero's a fine answer. I work in the Red Hat world, and often the Red Hat customers have zero developers. You may think that sounds kind of strange, but think about it, right? We provide Linux, we provide Kubernetes, OpenShift, and in some cases, it's often zero. They don't have any developers. They outsource all that. Okay. Okay. How many people? 20 to 50, 50 to 500. And you can think that I arbitrarily pick these buckets. Anyone in the 5,000 range here?
I just get
Okay.
this, yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't show, yeah, not showing
So
up.
it's the internet speed here not working out well for us. But that gives me a feel for how big of an organization you might work for and how many developers you might have. Because I'll tell you one thing when it comes to about platform engineering as a whole and some of the topics we'll talk about, it's probably too great an investment and cost if you only have one developer. Okay, because that's just one customer to serve. You're going to go through all this work for one person. If you only have 10 people, it still might be a lot of effort. Okay, but if you have 50, maybe now it's getting interesting. If you have 500, it's definitely interesting. All right, and we have customers that are in that 5,000 plus range that I see all the time, and it's very interesting to them, obviously, because they're trying to figure out how to make this group of 5,000 more productive. And all you got to do is with 5,000 developers, simply make them shave minutes off their day and save millions of dollars, right? Just by taking a few minutes to boil off their plate. So if you only have a developer, saving them 2 minutes a day, you may not care, right? It might cost too much to work on. The next question, though, is an important one. If your developer that you might have to serve has to write one line of code, hello world, and every developer should know how to write hello world in their favorite programming language, whether it be JavaScript, Java, C# it is, it takes them no time at all to write that code. How many days would it take to get hello world into production? So that's the question you're answering now. If you think about the systems and the apparatus you have within your company, how long would it take to get hello world to production? And you can, and it's all anonymous. You don't have anyone names here, but if you smile too much, people might notice, right? You make funny faces or things like that. Okay, so you can see that the data's coming in here. We got a bunch of you voted. And so I see 2 people with the less than 1 day. Okay, that's super interesting. I see people in the 2 to 5 day range, and I see some people in the 2 week range. No one picked the 4 week range. Okay, that's okay, because I had one time I did this, and the customer was like, "I'm sorry, but it's 6 weeks, so can you add another column?" It's like, no, just 4 plus. Okay, that's good. So here, this does tell me something about the way you might be thinking about how you automate, how you reduce friction along the path to production, right? It might be you thinking 2 weeks is slow. Might be you're thinking 2 weeks is fine. Okay, so it's all relative to your organization. And the way you have to think about this, though, is what is the sprint interval often impacts this number. If you have a 3 week sprint, we deploy every 3 weeks. Well, your time to production is 3 weeks. Okay, that's your sprint interval. If you have a 1 week sprint interval, maybe you can deploy every week, right? That's kind of the idea there. So it really depends a lot on your sprint intervals and how you lock that up, how you parallelize that activity, and of course, how you automate the path to production. All right, so you guys tell me right now, based on what the numbers you see here, should it be faster or is this fast enough? Is this tremendous speed? I'm actually scared. There's too much speed here. You can say too much speed. Okay.
If you include business testing,
What's that?
if you want to have stages where the business can test new functionalities, you don't want it to go too fast, I think.
That's a very good point, where you have a manual checking process, basically like a user acceptance test.
Something like that.
Right? That's a good point.
When actually it's purely technical, I want, of course, less than a day.
Right.
Like instance close to.
But
Yeah.
something technical can also break something, so it has to be tested as well.
Yeah, so you have test coverage, it's picked up because something changed and all the change. And eventually you have a
If
test
you have
error.
enough
stop it.
coverage, indeed,
But indeed, yeah,
not everywhere the case. But
it's quality included.
I think you'll like some more points we have in this presentation then. Okay, so keep those ideas in mind. I like those ideas. All right, let's get out of Mentimeter mode and back to the presentation over here. Well, thank you for that. I just run these little surveys to kind of audience to see what other people are saying. And I've had some really long duration aspects of that. By the way, the slide deck is here. I forgot to show you that. All right, so if you want to grab that code real quick, that'll give you the live Google Doc. And you can get into the Google Doc if you have a Gmail account. And then you don't have to worry about asking you for the slide deck later, because you're like, oh, I have it already on my phone. Also, you can read ahead and decide that I'm boring you and you want to get out of here. That's another option. All right. And we can also put this up again later. Okay. So let's kind of move along here because we don't have a lot of time. All right. So 2017, I started thinking about this DevOps problem back in 2017. I ran a presentation for about 1,000 people out of Atlanta called Teaching Elephants to Dance. And so I'm going to go recall some of that presentation because there's some fun stuff in there that I think is important. But at the same time, this is a problem I've been thinking about now for 8 years. Okay, how do we make enterprise IT more efficient, more productive? How do we make developers happier? How do we do all these cool things that allow us to move more speedily from development to production? Because your code, one of the phrases I love to say, your code, I don't care how beautiful it is, how cool the algorithms are, where you put curly braces or semicolons, I don't care about that until it lands in production and adds value to the business problem that's supposed to add value to. Okay? And there's a great study done by Microsoft many years ago. It turns out 30% of things that go to production actually add negative value. So not positive, negative. And 30% are neutral. So if you can eliminate the 30 negative and 30 neutral and just do the 30 that add value, wow, game changing. So 2017, teaching elephants to dance. I talked a lot about this digital Darwinism, this evolutionary process here. So think about the DevOps mindset. Think about how self-service and elastic infrastructure impacts the world. Does a developer have to file a ticket, or can they immediately get access to resource? Think about your automation, whether that be Puppet Chef or Ansible. I know no one talks about Puppet Chef anymore. They're basically, dead and gone. But Ansible at this point, or Kubernetes, Argo CD. Think about your automation capability. CI/CD from a deployment pipeline perspective. Do you have automation in this category? If you don't have testing, you do not have CI, by the way. You have every now and then integration, not continuous integration. Because I've read a lot of shops, they're like, we do continuous integration. We have Jenkins running. What do you do with your Jenkins? Well, it runs a build every day. And how do you build with all the branches? Well, only when those branches come in every 3 weeks, right? That's when they come into trunk. So we build those every 3 weeks. And do you have tests? No, we don't have very good testing. So that's every now and then integration, right? Not continuous integration. So think about that CI/CD aspect. And then when it comes to deployment techniques, this is how you start going ultra fast, right? I want to do A/B testing, blue-green deployments. I want to basically do some form of feature flagging so I can basically actually ship to production, test in production, and then turn the feature on so users can see it. Or maybe only give it to a small subset of users, or just like you said, only to the people in this company, not people outside the company, until we take the flag. So that's one of the things you think about from canary deployment. And then we think about microservice architecture. Now, here's this point that's kind of important. I don't know about you and culturally speaking, but here, I grew up in the US, obviously. I'm a fast-talking American. You can tell me if I'm speaking too fast. That's okay, I understand. Am I talking too fast? Okay, because in Germany, this does not work. I'm telling you, the Germans like, don't English, don't talk so fast. Okay. All right. But it works fine in Sweden and in Netherlands. Maybe it works in Belgium also. Doesn't work as well in England. I'm kidding. But I taught 3 teenagers how to drive cars. Has anyone else had the privilege of teaching a teenager how to drive a vehicle? Anybody?
Yes.
Everybody's too young? Okay. I literally taught 3 teenagers how to drive cars. We only killed 3 mailboxes in the process. Seriously, we killed a few mailboxes. But we had some very cool lessons there, critical lessons, like cars don't touch other cars or any other object for that matter. While you may see your friend, you run up and give them a hug. Don't hug the cars. We went all through that. We learned about blind spots, and that's an important lesson to learn in life. What the blind spot is. But one of the things we talked about with cars, teaching kids to drive cars, speed kills. If you slow down, you have more decision-making time, more braking ability, more turning ability, and therefore you might be able to get out of a bad situation before you actually have a car accident. So speed kills. So that's just beating into teenagers across the US. Speed kills, speed kills. By the way, the drug called speed also kills, but the actual vehicle speed kills. And I'm here to tell you that maybe that's a problem in enterprise IT. Speed is safer, not worse. Okay? So I'll give you this example here of IKEA. They had this thing called Shell Shock. They talked about the presentation that they gave at Red Hat Summit several years ago. This is about 2016 when I had this information. The video's there. They actually rolled out a change to a severe vulnerability called Shell Shock globally in hours across multiple data centers, all their stores, 6 continents, I believe, with hours. So that's speed. And they wanted to have speed so they could get in front of a major vulnerability. That's what was mission critical there. Okay? There was another one we had not too long ago called Heartbleed, again, back in 2017. And that was very problematic. How quickly could you patch? And I was talking to customers at this time, and I would basically say, okay, what do you do? Well, here's what I got. I got all these virtual machines. How many virtual machines do you have? And one person, I got 250. The next lady was like, I got 350. One up and the other dude. I thought that was kind of funny. The next person, I got 1,200. Literally, one guy had 1,200 virtual machines. I said, okay, how do you patch it? Well, okay, we got to talk about that a little bit. So the patching aspect is very important. And so I want to talk about how slow kills, okay? If you have struts 2 as a vulnerability in production, now you have an open door to the internet allowing all your data to leak. Or if you have log4j, log4shell, in production, right? And these are things at the Java level, not at the operating system level. Operating platform people think about the operating system. Our operating system's good. I know how to patch that. I can patch it out from under the application. But what happens if the developers who use that library don't know if their application will work on the next version of the library? You got to think about that because these vulnerabilities are real. We've not seen them before at that level of the stack until we did. And then if you remember in December 2021, right, we freaked out about Log4j.
Yeah.
It was all hands on deck, hair on fire, panic mode. Where are we leaking our data to the public internet? So actually slow kills, okay? That was the basic premise there. And again, these are slides from 2017. Chinese underground have already built the hacking tool. So as soon as you actually know, it's called a 0-day vulnerability, by the way. 0 because you have 0 days to respond. As soon as we let you know there's a problem, the bad guys know too. Same time. There's no way to hide that information. As soon as every customer knows, everybody knows. Chinese underground already figured out the hacking tool except for this port being open and basically started going in right there. And here's what's funny. When it comes to these bugs, these CVs, there's people in production today with them. Okay, they can still be found on the open internet. So just so that these are a problem. By the way, this is Equifax. I used this example in Atlanta, Georgia, for a group of 1,000 people in 2017. Guess who's in Atlanta, Georgia? Equifax. So I said, I don't want you to raise your hand if you're in the room right now, but this is an organization that comes from this community. And they lost how much American data to the dark web because they could not patch this fast enough. If you look at the dates here, September 2017, that vulnerability was known several months earlier, but they could not patch quickly. They can only patch slowly. Therefore, the door stays open to the internet for as long as they can't patch. So I'm here to tell you, slow can kill, not speed. Okay, different way of thinking about it. So back to 2021 here. This is an executive order that came out from the White House. So as you said, cybersecurity matters. You need to be thinking about these problems on a recurring basis because we are tired of all these unpatched things that are allowing American data to be leaked out across the internet, as an example. So we had Log4j here in 2021. That was the most egregious version of this after that 2017 presentation, but this got the people's attention. It's the logging framework. The logging framework had special capability in it where it dynamically loaded another library and then opened port. And it was a feature. It wasn't a bug. And it was actually found by an Alibaba engineer, okay, who did alert the appropriate authorities. And this is November of that year. And they basically, Apache Foundation, had to say, vulnerability, and everybody knows. So it's all for the races. All the bad guys are hacking, all the good guys are packing. Okay, it's one of the things. So speed is an important part of it. Developers must be part of the supply chain. If you're not thinking about this on the development side of things, with your Log4j, with your Struts2, with whatever the next library you're using, you should be thinking about that because it could be a problem. Another key thing I'd like to talk about when it comes to being part of the value chain is empathy. I talk about this a lot with different presentations, but empathy is what it means to actually feel what someone else feels. And I think that's maybe a little too strong. And actually I have a daughter, she actually is empath. So it's kind of funny to watch her behave around other people. She feels what you feel, right? She can actually do that. Not like in the science fiction way, but she really cares deeply. If you're sad, she's sad. If you're happy, she's happy. It's kind of interesting to watch. And as a child, you saw this weird behavior in her, because she would actually just tell you lies. And I thought it was, logical thing. You just lied to me. That wasn't her intent. She just wanted to make you happy, right? She was saying what you want to hear. Even as a little kid, it was kind of strange. So now you see it as an adult, you know what she does now so well? She sells. She's a killer salesperson. She makes more money than I do. So in any case, so empathy is a key feature there. So I want you to think about that empathy concept as you think about this image here. Notice this is my developer over here, my programmer. You guys know what I mean here? Any developers in the room, don't raise your hand, but I'm kidding. Again. But you know what I mean about my developers. I actually managed a development team back in the day where I was the manager that owned dev and ops, meaning I cared about the app and production as well as all the stuff that had to happen. And we were running one week sprints at that time. This is a project where we learned Agile the hard way. It was back in like 2001 before the world knew about Agile, knew about sprints, and knew about CI and all that stuff. But we were doing it just because we had to. We had such deadlines. But I had developers who would check in code on Friday. 4:45 p.m. Hey, boss, I fixed that bug you told me I had to fix. I got it done. High five. I'm out to the door. I'm into the pub. And see, here's the problem with that. I also on the outside. So we would spend the entire weekend trying to make that crap run in production. And no one was documented properly. The logging wasn't configured correctly. The code may not even checked into the total build and compile correctly. So I had to do one very special thing with that group of developers. I said, look, we're deploying every week. Again, this is like 2001 when no one did that sort of thing, but we got to do it because that's what the business depends on us to get it done. And it did. We put $5 million at risk for this company. Now, $5 million in today's money is no money at all, right? Everyone's got $5 million laying around. But for this company in 2001, it mattered. It was life or death. $5 million put them out of business if we lost it, and we were in jeopardy of losing it. So we were building features just in time to capture the money that they were going through at that point. So my ops team and I would sit there all weekend trying to make it run. So I used a very special technique. You guys should try this at some time if you manage a group of people. I needed my developers to understand that it was hard to deploy their crappy stuff. They didn't document it properly. They didn't set it up correctly. They didn't even check that it compiled correctly, or at least compile with all the other libraries involved in the system. Because again, the CI wasn't a real thing back then. I said, but at least we use visual source safe for source control. But so I said, real simple. Okay, guys, you know, we got to deploy this code every week. That's what the customer demands of us. Everyone knew that when you signed up for this project. This is not new information. I'm declaring every developer works through Saturday. Yeah, you work Monday through Friday and Saturday. And of course, this was a problem. They fit. I said, it doesn't matter. You want to stay on this project? You want to be unemployed? You work every Saturday because I work every Saturday. And the ops team works every Saturday. They said, but it's just the ops people. They just got to figure out how to deploy it. I said, then you're going to stand around and watch. This only took 2 Saturdays. Like you. By the second Saturday, one, they knew I had that business. And two, they're like, oh, crap, we don't document it well. You're right. We didn't clearly think through the deployment aspects of this. We should have actually synced up in terms of library versions and things like that, these API calls. And it only took 2 Saturdays. And they wrote vastly better code Monday through Friday after that. Because they had empathy for the operational side of the house. Okay? All right. So I like this diagram here. This is one of my most famous images. I've even had people send me actual things where they've actually printed this into like, portrait-sized paintings and stuff like that. So have you guys heard the story of rolling the boulder uphill? Right, so Greek mythology, right? He rolls the boulder uphill, but the boulder rolls back down and crushes him. And so I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about what it means to put things in production when it comes to our software engineering efforts and DevOps efforts, things like that. And unfortunately, software doesn't have structural integrity like a boulder. It's not nice and round. It doesn't roll very well. It's more like an amorphous blob. Okay? And there's a gang of people, not just one, but a whole group of people trying to get it up the hill, trying to get it across the finish line. And then we look at this diagram, you see this person up here. Now, who do you think this person is in your organization?
Probably a higher management level.
Okay, fair. Any other ideas? Think about your organization.
QE.
QE, okay. But do you even have names?
My colleague.
And I've used this slide a lot for thousands upon thousands of people at this point. And I was at ING not that long ago, and I was giving a keynote like this one for 400 people, and I used this slide. I said, does anyone here have a name? The vice president of all these people yells an individual's name. Okay? And he wasn't kidding. And I said, okay, I understand. The point of this slide right now is somebody thinks their job is to stop forward progress. Might be the security team, might be the QE team, might be management. It might be somebody who thinks, oh God, we got to check this and do that. We got to do this process. We got a workflow. We have to run. We got to file a ticket. Did you check this and check this and check this? Somebody thinks it's their job to say no. As a matter of fact, if you look at any organization of humans around, no is the default answer, not yes. How do you flip from no to yes? Is one of those terrible things that's really hard to do. How about this person that's talking? You see this guy surfing the blob, facing the wrong direction, but they're in charge, they're on top. Who's that?
I don't know. He was dragging me, Dave.
Obviously, this is our architect, right? They're in charge, right? They know they set standards. Well, they're in charge. They got to figure it out, but they're not facing the right way. How about this person down here at the bottom?
I think he's more the architect.
So I would tell you from my developers in the room, This is the operations people, the infrastructure people, the ops people. They're just trying to keep this thing alive. This ugly monstrosity that has been created that no one can figure out how to make work correctly. They're just trying to make it run. They're patching, they're clicking, they're pointing, they're writing scripts, they're poking at ports, starting processes, watching them fail, starting the process, watch it fail, hoping on the third try it starts and stays up. And often it does magically. So they know to restart it 3 times, wiggle their nose. You think I'm kidding? This is how operations are done. Okay. All right. So think about that, because if it was hard to do once, oh, by the way, we're going to do it again in 3 months and 3 months after that and 3 months after that, because we deploy every quarter. That's how we do business at this company. So this is painful. So again, when I talk about empathy, you want to remove this pain if you can. All right. This is the wall of confusion. This is the most famous image of DevOps when the term was first coined back in the day. I just had it animated. So you can see that we think for some reason the developer thinks they can throw it over the wall and hit the other guy in the head. It actually is more interesting than that, because technically it's DevSec and Ops. Okay. There's 3 groups involved here. And it's almost like a round robin kind of thing. Everybody throws it over the wall. Everyone files a ticket, sends the ticket to the other guy. I don't have to do any work. I'm waiting on the ticket to come back. The ticket is a CYA mechanism. Hopefully you've heard it before. Cover your ass. The ticketing system was not meant to be cover your ass. The ticketing system was meant to make a workflow work more smoothly, yet we actually stay behind it and hide behind it. So if you think of DevSec and Ops, that is my love triangle. These 3 people in the organization, thinking about the security vulnerabilities that we talked about earlier, how do we actually make sure that they're all collaborating, communicating, and working effectively? Because if it takes 2 weeks to send hello world to production, and it took 2 minutes to write the code and 2 more weeks to get to production, what is going on in the interim 2 weeks? Could we go faster? Can we actually get that thing faster? Now, when we actually have a concept like this, when you actually have 3 people standing in a room, and we have more than 3 right now, but already with the words I've said and the images I've shown you, in your head is actually a slightly different image. It's a human nature thing, human psychology thing. You can't help that. You were born into a family and a culture that gave you biases and filters. Your mom and dad didn't mean to treat you to be that way, but they did, okay? Because that's human nature. And you work for a company in a group and a department that has biases and filters. That's your tribe. And all these biases and filters means the shape that I wanted to project to you isn't the shape that's in your head right now. Okay, so anytime you can put 3 people together, they're going to have 3 different ways, 3 different perspectives. Now, this is an important point. Like my Amy here, you can see Amy Edmondson. I got a lot of quotes here. So this doesn't get us into much trouble. The fact that they're all different shapes, see different things. It only gets us in trouble when it's incompatible or at odds with the thing we're trying to do. So it's fine that we have different perspectives. That's actually a good thing, right? We actually want people with highly diverse neural networks in their head. Neural diversity is amazing, right? Different kinds of diversity is amazing. It's good for us to have people from different cultures, different genders, different biases, different filters. But we got to communicate. Otherwise, it doesn't help. Okay? Now, so when this happens, our natural instinct is to think the other person is missing the point. Why is it you don't get it? I told you what it was. Why can't you get it? Human nature, right? You must miss the point. All right? So that's an important element there. Now, I love this diagram here. I know I've got to go a little faster here. Think about this for a second. Do you see these 2 people here? They're at war with each other. One says our blessed homeland. The other says their barbarous waste. So what I consider my beautiful home, these people consider it to be wasteland. What I consider to be my glorious leader, these people think it's a wicked despot, right? Our great religion, right? The primitive superstition. Doesn't matter if you think this is left, right, one culture versus another. It's just how humans work. If you're the other, you're different. And different is bad by default in humans. Okay, you have to overcome that. Okay, so how do you get these people maybe having the same image here? You notice my love triangles flip the other way now, it looks more like a heart. How do we actually get the same image in place? And more importantly, can we get the same image and get the same idea? Can we go that far? Can we go so far that we actually have the same epiphany? Now this is hard. Okay, and I have some different techniques I use, even within Red Hat. Red Hat is 22,000 people ago. And I've tried to do this within Red Hat. Chris, who has been a witness of this now for a few years, right? He works with me. I'm trying to do this nonstop within Red Hat to get people on the same idea. Okay, and it's hard. It's hard for this reason. So if you have a brilliant idea, you got to tell somebody. Okay, and here's the worst part. You tell 10 people, almost all of them forgot about it, but 3 remember. Okay. So they heard you, but it just didn't sink in. And so, but you got to get some more people to tell more people. And you got to get that through the critical mass of the organization before change can happen for your organization. Before you go, oh, we got to get on this cloud computing thing. Oh, we do CD better. We need to figure that out. Or we just need to understand better how our requirements are gathered and how they're documented. It doesn't matter what the idea is. It can be something very simple, but it takes a lot of effort to move through an organization. And it takes a lot of sustained effort by the idea creator. They got to really work hard at that. So empathy is at the heart of creation. People don't believe what you believe. People do not believe what you believe, okay? They don't know what you know, and they don't want what you want. So my next key word is humility. If you want to be a brilliant platform person, you got to be more humble. If you want to be a brilliant software engineer, you got to have greater humility. Because your users don't want what you want, they want what they want. And one of the things I often tell development teams, I tell us within Red Hat development teams, engineers, you know, I see Red Hat engineers all the time. They build these really cool things. And I say, great, where's the superpower for my user? And that's thrown off a lot of Red Hat engineers over the years. Chris, have you heard me say that to you even, I think? Yeah, but I definitely said it to other people. It's like, where's the superpower for my user? And they're like, what do you mean? Like, my user is not going to move in your direction to adopt your cool thing because it's not cool for them. It's cool for you. Do something different. Think about what's cool for them. And that's hard because humans don't think that well that way. So can we actually get some people on the same page and make them love each other? Can we get the hearts here going? I don't know. It's kind of hard. So one key thing from Amy's studies, right? Instead of focus on building great teams, think of teaming as a verb. Love that phrase. Teaming is a verb. It's an action we take. It's not a noun. It's not a place to hang out. It's not a part of the org chart. As a matter of fact, if you think in terms of org chart, you're already doing it wrong. You should be going across the org chart and building teams on the fly wherever you can. So what I do within Red Hat to solve this problem with Red Hat, I start my own email list. I've done this now for well over a decade. I actually started a previous company back in the mid-90s. If an idea matters and can be disruptive to Red Hat, I start an email list. Okay? So back in the day, relatively recent history, I did one called microservice. And I said, everybody who thinks this microservice cloud native thing might matter, get on this list. Maybe only 200 people show up or 300 people show up, but it's 200, 300 people that care. And then you can start getting the light bulbs turned on and you can start articulating what could be the problems and how do we actually respond to it and what should we do? Did the same thing with serverless, right? Did the same with platform engineering, DevOps. Did the same with cloud. And now we're doing it for Gen AI. All right, same thing. Start the email list, put the people who care on it, start communicating. And so that's just one simple way of actually going about teaming. And if some manager reaches out and says, Burr, you realize you pulled in people from my team. It's like, yeah, it's a good thing. Okay? Teaming is not an org chart. Teaming is a verb. So I love that concept. Teaming is a dynamic activity that involves coordination, collaborating without the benefit of a stable structure. All right, so that's a key thing. So let's talk about love triangles for a second. And I want to show you a demo. All right, so this is the most famous love triangle for most of us geeks. It's about Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Princess Leia. And the first Star Wars in 1976, I think it was, we thought, woo, the girl likes either boy. Which guy is she going to go with? And later on, we found it was her sister. It was Luke's sister, oh my God. But we didn't know that at the time. It's Star Wars time. We didn't learn that until later. But that was one of the more famous love triangles in history. Which guy might she choose? It's kind of a funny concept. Okay? Teaming as a verb, though, reminded me of another thing. The love languages. Have you guys heard of the love languages? Anybody here? All right, you might say, well, this doesn't translate to Europe. I actually know it does. So the 5 love languages is a very famous book. Now, you primarily would get this book in a situation where you're not doing too well with your chosen partner. All right. It doesn't matter, what's going on in your world, but if you're not doing too well with your chosen partner, someone's going to hand you this book and tell you to read it. The other one they'll hand you is called Who Moved My Cheese? Have you heard of that one? All right, that's another great book. So go ahead and get these 2 books before you have problems with your partner, and you're going to head the partner problems off. I'm serious, okay? So before the divorce, think about what the other person's love language is. Because it turns out every human has a unique way they wish to be spoken to, treated, interacted with, and that's not your way. It's their way, not your way. And if you're a person who's been involved in a relationship, you figured that out the hard way. I take out the trash every day, That's what I'm doing because I think acts of service are the love language. I clean up, I do all the cleaning, I take out the trash, I take care of all this. But the other person's love language is not acts of service. It's words of affirmation. Yes, you took out the trash, but you didn't say how nice he or she looked today or the cool thing that they did that you thought was cool. You didn't say thank you, right, for the awesome thing they did. So this is important human again, right? Love language is so popular, it's been translated into numerous languages, published all around the globe. So I'm sure it's actually here in a local bookstore. Not that you guys go to bookstores anymore, but there's this archaic concept called bookstore. You get these books. It's even been made for the military. It's been made for Russians, right? It's been made in Chinese. It's a very popular book. So he's also created a version for the workplace relationships. Because in the love languages category between you and your partner, one of those elements is called physical touch. Probably should leave that out of the workplace a little bit. So I don't know actually what he replaces it with, but he's got it for the workplace. Okay. There's also the 5 love languages DevOps. I saw this concept, 4 love languages product management. So this concept is now being used throughout this world. And so the goal is shared goals, shared DevSecOps, going together, pushing that rock uphill together. Okay, because we're on the same page now. And more importantly, even if we don't have the same full understanding, we don't have the same exact image in our head, we care about each other enough to try to do our best for each other. That's all we're saying. Right? We're going to work real hard for each other. And I've had one question asked of me before, and it actually came up even today. I've given this presentation back in 2017, and I've had developers come out to me after every version of this presentation. From Burr, I can't do any of that. I can't do all that cool stuff we talked about. My so-and-so won't let me. Who's the so-and-so? My ops team won't let me. My security team won't let me. My DBA won't let me. My manager won't let me. Somebody has said no. Someone has stopped us from doing all this cool DevOps, all that CI, CD, blah, blah, blah. Someone stopped us. And I would say, okay, it's real simple then. You know the person saying, yeah, I know the name. It's Joe, Fred, Sally, Mary, whatever. Okay. When's the last time you took them to lunch? Now, this actually broke some people's brains. You could tell. They're like, what do you mean? Take them lunch. I said, is Joe a human? Well, yeah, of course he's human. I bet he eats. Yeah, he probably eats. He's not a monster. Take him to lunch. For a fact, he'd probably geek like you. He might like Star Trek like you like Star Wars, but you like one or the other. Or maybe you're Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter fan. Doesn't matter. I bet he's a geek like you. Go to lunch with him. Build a relationship with him. Understand just a human trying to follow his own procedures and policies and whatever the rules and constraints that he has. Build empathy for him. Build a relationship with him. And guess what? The next time you ask the question, the answer will be yes, not no. But we forget about that. We stay in our silos. We don't think that we have to go to lunch with someone in their silo. So think about that right now. Does anybody in this room work with another person in this room? If you could raise your hand if you work with another person in this room. Okay. And no one else admits it, right? Just me working. Okay, you too, right? So this is just a random thing. I've done this in rooms full of, again, hundreds of people, where you can see almost all the hands. And I say, all right, now take your hands down if that person who works with you is not sitting with you. And invariably, you always sit with your coworker. So already you mentally, even in a room, said, oh, I'm going to sit with my coworker because I don't feel comfortable with all this other weirdos over there. I'm not saying this, you feel uncomfortable. But that's human nature, and you have to overcome it, okay? You got to overcome it. So we can talk a lot about cloud native stuff. We're going to run out of time, obviously, but I want to show you a demonstration also of some of this capability I'm talking about here. So this is when Spring Boot happened, Docker happened. We did cloud native, we did Kubernetes. We actually did a big demonstration of all that in 2015. That's when OpenShift was born. Kubernetes came out to the world. That I have a video of that online if you want to watch it. But after 2015 is when it started getting interesting. We had Helm, GitOps. We had talked about platforms. We started talking about this platform as a product idea. Argo CD, Tecton, the key metrics were trial in terms of ThoughtWorks in the case of 2018 there. The book Team Topologies came out in 2019. The concept of platform engineering in 2020, May of 2020, 5 years ago, was when ThoughtWorks said, hey guys, you should think about this idea. And as of 2021, adopt it. Stop thinking about it and go. So these principles have been around a long time. We've been working on a long time. Okay. So one of the key elements is platform as product. You want to have a product manager. You want to think in terms of this a brilliant product you're building for your developers, your end users, your customers. How do you do that? Is like you also see on Fabrics Word area, right? Applying product management to internal platforms, secure policy as code. You're going to build a platform as a product by thinking in terms of being a product and a product manager. In other words, you have to have a product with a product manager, not a product owner, product manager. If you don't have a product manager, full stop. You don't have a product. And you should have a product. Not a project, but you budget and you basically put people resources against for, let's say, 2 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks. No, the people who get put on this product own this product forevermore to the end of history. And it's their life to make this product brilliant for their users. They don't go to sleep at night if their product's not amazing for their customers. That's the mental model. You're building an amazing product for your customers, and you're refining a way to give them a new superpower. Because again, people won't move in your direction unless you get them a superpower. So what is that platform? We won't worry about the definition here. I'll just show you a chart. A platform might look like this. Okay? You can see there's a lot here. You might have to think in terms of how you can offer compute, network, storage, self-service, namespaces of service, cluster of service. You got to think about auth-in, auth-z, and RBAC. You got to figure out what you're going to use for storage control. You got to figure out what you're going to do for artifact building and image building. Those are two separate things. CI in terms of task runners and things of that nature. Your Jenkins, your GitHub Actions, things of that nature. Security, runtime scanning, build time scanners. What artifact storage is going to be. What a continuous delivery solution is, that Argo CD or something else. What observability tools do we want? What CLIs might we use? Our Helm, kubectl, OC, Git, APIs, cache as a service, database as a service, Kafka as a service, development environments, DevX and tutorials and really cool stuff on top, and then golden path templates, and then maybe a portal on top of that. And I drew this slide originally, not to really articulate all the things below there, but I drew the slide originally because I found people going, hey, we're going to solve all our problems. We're adopting Backstage. And I want to make the point that Backstage is just the icing on a mini layered cake. If you don't solve the things below it, at least have answers for the questions. You don't have to implement everything. You might not implement databases as a service in this first go around. You're not ready for it yet. But at least know it exists and why you're not doing it right now. Okay? So you got to think about all those things in terms of platform. It's a key element. And again, you can have access to these things. You got to know who you're building for. So who's your customer? You can see this presentation goes on really long. Team topologies for a streamlined team. Your primary goal is to reduce cognitive load. So in other words, we want to reduce friction. We want to reduce cognitive load. We want to make sure our developers can just move along with taking next generation ideas, innovating, building out next generation applications for their customers, their users, right? Now, I show this here because you got to think about cognitive load. You see this slide over here between 2018 and 2022? And it's impossible to read, but this is what a developer has to kind of sort of know about to write code now. It was very different way back in when I started in this career path. You had to know one programming language, COBOL, either Wiffle or JCL. Not both, just one. It depends on which mainframe you bought, right? Anyone remember JCL?
JCL.
Yeah. All right, so job control language. But Wiffle was from the Unix universe, not the IBM universe. And you did everything in batch. It was all centralized. Operations was move a tape from here to here. They had cubby holes, stacking tapes. That was it. It was easy to be an IT person back then. Okay? It was ridiculously easy. And that's actually how I learned. And then I had to learn this thing called C++ and C. I had to get good at that. I had to learn something called 4GL, relational database, SQL. Oh my God, SQL was hard until it wasn't. I had to learn this thing called Unix. Oh my God, that was a nightmare until it wasn't. But you know what was really hard is I had to learn how to do interactive applications, things that involved a mouse click. Oh my God, that killed developers. I knew developers dropped out of the career path just based on the fact you gave them a mouse. Like, no mouse for me. I'm done. I'm retiring. You think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding. So the concept of GUI event driven changed the way we build applications. Then you got to go to the web and what is this get, put, post, and delete? So I navigated all these transitions myself, training people along the way. So I can tell you, once it gets over here, it's just too much. There's too much stuff. So what you want to do is reduce the load on the developer, and basically platform engineering says, okay, let's just take all this, let's just try to get rid of all that for you, if we can. You don't, Mr. and Miss Developer, don't worry about all this crazy Kubernetes things and the Helms and Argos and the service meshes and customize, don't worry about all that. I'll take that off your plate. I'll put that in the platform. I'll make it all automated. And you just worry about writing some code that does something cool that sits on top of that as much as possible. But you can see that the learning curve is much higher than it ever used to be. Okay? It should be compelling. You got to build a compelling internal product, and you have to know who you seek to serve. Who's your customer? So the customer is not a unicorn. I like this image a lot. The customer is a horse. Unicorns are not real. Okay, just in case we're wondering. Now, this could be, this is a very interesting one, but you can decide that this maybe is a painful one. So if you look at the technology adoption life cycle, and I have two buckets here, pathfinders and builders, you have the uber geeks on the far left. These are people who will read your source code to understand your thing. They will get on GitHub with you and pull out those files and adopt that technology literally by going straight to the sources. They do this with Node and Python all the time if you come from those universities. But Java people, not as much. They kind of wait for the jar file to exist in Maven Central as opposed to straight to source. But I've had to build straight from source for things. So, there's that. You can see that they might work with .coms or startups. This person here kind of wants a zip file or jar file to exist, or library of some sort. They might contribute and speak at different conferences. This is where it gets interesting, is when the other people come in, the early majority, they want tools, they want wizards, they want documentation. They don't want to read the code. Give them a good document on how to use the code, not read the code, okay? They want to know what the API looks like. They want it to be stable. They want to have somebody evangelize to them and tell them how to use all these cool things. And they get over here eventually on the far left, and these are people who will never move if you held a gun to their head. So know that about your customer base. If you basically build a platform that serves 1,000 developers, we saw somebody earlier said, I got 5,000 developers, I got 500 developers, they'll be across the spectrum. And you can only move the ones on the left. And you have to move the ones on the left, and you cannot win at all. You don't have to move the ones on the right, maybe ever. Until you hold a gun to their head. And maybe that's why the term I'm an American, so we actually, that's a funny phrase for us. It's like a normal phrase. So you're going to fire them in the case of, not wanting to move here. All right. So let's actually show you just a quick demo, and then we'll be done. Because I think I'm over time. Am I over time? Am I taking too much of your time?
That's fine. Not my time. Okay.
Yeah. So let's just show a little demo here. Where here we go. Not that one. This one. Yeah, I'll just show you a little demo. Where am I going here? All right, let's go. So this is actually a Backstage, and I have a bunch of stuff running on this cluster. So this cluster actually holds not only my traditional CI/CD and all the infrastructure, it also does all the model serving ID for large language model based applications. It has Kubeflow. I threw everything in here. Okay, everything is thrown in here pretty much. And so if you look at Backstage, the primary reason Spotify invented it was to solve one key huge problem. They were hiring people every week, and they were hiring people practically every day, and people were onboarding constantly. They found two problems with that onboarding process. The newbies were asking lots of questions and moving very slow. The people answering the questions, the people who've been around a while, the senior people, the good people, were also moving very slow because they're spending all their time answering questions. So they had this epiphany at Spotify. They're like, can we just write all the questions down and all the answers and maybe create an environment so they could basically say, can all these people just go to one URL and find what they need? Mind blowing, right? One URL. It's a web page. But here's the problem with old web pages and wikis. Have you ever seen a wiki that is up to date?
Doesn't exist.
It's not up to date. It's never up to date. So their actual real genius here was, we'll put everything in Git. As a matter of fact, we'll put all the documentation in with the code itself. And if you're updating the code, update the documentation. It's easy. It does require a change in habit. Use Markdown, but you can do that. You can go update the docs when you update the code, hopefully. And now all the documentation is in one place. It's always up to date. You know where all the repositories are. So as a developer, if you get hired, you get a URL. And you get a URL from your boss that says, hey, I know you have questions. Log in here. It answers your questions. And it might be that I have a simple demo environment here, but I know I was hired to look at e-commerce stuff. So I'm going to come here and look across the catalog. That's feature number one. I want to see across the catalog, and I was hired as a back-end engineer. I don't know if we have a back-enders in here right now, but I was a back-end engineer. So let me look at e-commerce backer. That sounds kind of back-endish. Let me look at the dependencies. This is what I talked about. What we talked about when I was being interviewed. You can see it's actually a BFF. It's a backends for front ends. There's my Java people, right? We talked about this earlier. There we go. There we go. Yes. So yes, I'm basically got to have the front end API that talks to their APIs. Maybe you can Spring Boot something like that to talk to databases. And that's 80% of what we write in enterprise. Okay, that is literally what we do. So you can see I've got databases here. I've got other APIs I consume. I can drill down on that. I can find out more information about it. Well, oh, yeah, and I can, can look at those dependencies. So like if I want to double click here and, find out more about that customer backend, right? I can figure out where it is in source repository because those are often lost and I can just find it. So finding what you need and getting access to maybe some like documentation. I think I have a little basic documentation on this one here, right? Some basic stuff. Okay. Getting access to documentation is a massive win. So catalog and docs, huge win. There's a subtle win that actually matters if you think about that stack I showed you earlier, and that is known as the Golden Path template. So the Golden Path template is where can we codify all our standards for which you start a new project. In other words, we know we'd use Node.js and we use a certain type of library in that case. We use a React front end with a, I forget the so popular, but I use Spring Boot on the Java side, but I basically have different components that I would have within my stack. So you can see here, I might say, oh, I want a chatbot with an external large language model. Oh, yeah, let's use this one. Okay, AE bot and AE bot. And I got to remember the URL to my bot. Let's see if I can remember. I think I put it over here. Did I put it over here? I did. All right, there. So this is the backend. This is the large language model. I'm not deploying a new large language model. I'm just going to use one. And this is the Meta Llama 3B instruct. Yeah, let's do that. No API key needed for this one because it's a local on this cluster model. I'm going to put this in the Query repository, hit review here, hit create. And if I did things correctly, let's see if I did things correctly. It's going to basically run this wizard. And the magic is when it actually imprints now a Git repository with all that you saw there kind of pre-configured with the entire template. And more importantly, a GitOps repository that is where the magic actually happens. So here it is. It's off and running now. If I go to my view source here, this is the AE bot based on the template that you saw that I picked from there. If I go down to the source here and main and resources and properties, there is that URL that I give for the large language model we'll be using. So again, a local large language model. But if I come over here and look at the AE, here's the GitOps part. This is where the magic is. Okay, so basically I have Helm. I have an AI bit of infrastructure that is part of this. So that's one key element. I have the application itself, and also not that. Let's go back here. I have the application itself. That's the app one, but so that's the app repository in terms of GitOps. But this one's actually really fun. This is actually the pipeline itself. So this is pipelines as code. So pipeline doesn't even have a permanent definition. It can be done. It can be modified. The reason I'm showing you this right now is the important thing is you as a platform person have to have one key feature, the attitude. The template is in Git. The standards are in Git. I am open for pull requests. If anyone in this organization thinks I've done something wrong here, I don't have the right version of Java in this POM XML, I don't have the right Node.js, the wrong libraries, I'm not requirements text or my package JSON, cool. Tell me. Give me a pull request. Don't file a ticket. Don't come talk to me. Buy me lunch, though. That's cool. But otherwise, you send a pull request. Now you're doing something called inner sourcing. You're acting like an open source project inside your own company. We're open for pull requests. We want contributions. Please, if you see something, a bug or a better way to do it, send us a pull request. All right. So that attitude, that distinction is why the magic works. Okay. If you're not willing to do that, then maybe you're not willing to do this sort of thing. Let's see here. So the AE bot is off and running. We won't have to let it finish. It'll take a little time, but let me show you one that is finished. So let's go here to the basic bot. You can see that this pipeline has run a few times here. In this case, you can see that it has emitted a CVEs. It's done a get loaded as a package. It's scanned the source code. It's built and signed the image. This actually uses some secure software supply chain capability. One thing called SigStore, and another thing called what do we call that thing? I'm trying to remember the other thing we call it. But basically, it's going to take your Java code, right? Compile it to a jar file. Fat jar that we use at this point in time in terms of Spring Boot, Quarkus, things like that. It's going to then create the container image around that. It's going to assign that container image. It's going to provide an attestation, SALSA level 4 attestation. It's going to give you the SBOM, software bill of materials. All four of those things are going to go into the repository, which is right here. And you can see them right here. There's the attestation, the signature of the SBOM, and the container image itself. All that gets pushed out to the container registry. And therefore, when you ship to production, you have what's the ingredient list, SBOM. Is it attested to? Yes. Is it signed? Yes, we can validate that. Right. So that's already part of knowing that this came from a location it should have. And what else we have here? Let's go here. We will build and sign, we upload the SBOM to the appropriate repository, and we run a bunch of checks. And so we have a bunch of scans here that do things like, check me for vulnerabilities, look at the image, make sure that you don't have a package manager, no yum install this and apt-get install that. You can say I violated that rule, I have a package manager in there, and deployment checks, like, oh, you got to request CPUs, you got to have a readiness probe, liveness probe, where you look at your deployment YAML. So checks are also in here also, but this is just part of the platform. The Backstage does all the security stuff. As a developer, I don't have to worry about it. It just happens. It's magic. I follow the template. I follow the golden path. So that's why this is kind of a powerful concept. And if you publish, again, using GitOps-based publication, I will use whatever triggering tool you want there for the workflow. But this is a second check that happens to run something we call enterprise contract, another open source project. It actually looks at all those artifacts and applies rules to them and goes, your attestation is correct. Your signature is there. You are SALSA compliant. You have, all the appropriate checks and, things there. And I just know that you're good to go. So this little set of checks is just a set of rules that apply during the publication phase, from dev to stage to prod. So yet another tool that helps you know that the thing you thought you built, the code you thought you put in there, is in fact making it there. We even have a piece that signs Git commits themselves. So you can actually literally block the build on a Git commit that was unsigned. All your Git commits should be signed. So therefore everything in the Git repository should be good. We build from that repository, we sign the image, we ship the image that's signed, and with all the appropriate attestations. So this is just stuff we've been working on for the last couple of years, what I've been working on. This all, you again, use Argo CD to kind of get it out there. And then I'll just show you quickly what the little application is, not that one. And I know I need to finish up here and get done. Let's see here. It's just a little chat bot that talks to the large language model. I can say hello. Let's see if it actually worked for me. Greetings. Oh, this is my Yoda version that I have here. Okay, welcome to the space. You are in wisdom. I'd say, why did the chicken cross the road? And let's see, it should give me a decent answer there. But I actually asked the bot to be like Yoda. Normally I use Chuck Norris. I was trying Yoda this morning. Chuck Norris is way funnier. But yeah, you can basically create what's called a system prompt. You basically can interact with that application using a large language model. This is a simple chatbot. I have way more complicated examples than this one, right? Like including this one, which does all the retrieval augmented generation or agentic architecture, guardrails, all that jazz, but we don't have time for that today. This will be part of my presentation tomorrow afternoon. Okay, so I think that's it for me. I think I'm out of time. Is that fair?
Very good.
I'll turn it over to our next speaker. Do we want to take a break or anything?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions, person?
And again, you can grab the slides here.
Or otherwise, we are going always to jump into a break, but first.